there. Here's something kind of important about the dimensions of steel. When we're working with pipe, the dimension that we are concerned with in naming this is the inside dimension. In this case, 1.5" diameter pipe. That's because it's designed for fluid to be running through it, and therefore that's the most important dimension. It has walls that are about 1/8 of an inch thick, so the whole tubing itself is almost 2 inches in diameter. When we get in from pipe into tubing, square steel tubing is measured on the outside dimensions. So in this case, we have a 1 inch by 1 inch square steel tube. We also have rectangular tubes. In this case, this is 1.5 inches by 3 inches. 1.5 inches is kind of important. Your textbook mentions that 1.5 inch square steel tubing is about the same strength as a 2x4. That's about right. But it's also, if it's 1.5 inches in a direction, going to marry up really well to other wooden structures that are in the set. And so for the sake of combining steel and wood into the same structure, we very often purchase 1.5" square or 1.5" rectangular tubing to go with our 2x4s or 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood, 1x. That module still works for us in our construction. So when we choose a metal to work with, we're almost never using a solid piece of steel. We're using something that's hollowed out, using a piece of square or rectangular tubing, maybe a piece of pipe, but at any rate, it's going to have some thickness to it. And here's a moment to think about gauge again. We talked about this earlier in the semester. Or I talked about it and you listened. You were very polite. At any rate, the thickness is, in gauge, is the reverse of numbers. That is to say, when we're thinking about something that is maybe 8 gauge or 10 gauge, it's pretty thick. When it's 22 gauge, it's pretty thin, pretty skinny. A way to think about what gauge we might be using in theatrical scenery is to think about the standard mild steel square or rectangular tubing. It's typically going to be 16 gauge. And 16 gauge is about 1/16 of an inch. You can see it right here. One last thing about pipe and conduit as building materials. Pipe has a variety of definitions and a variety of what are called schedules. And when we're using pipe to create railings and pipe structures, we'll use Schedule 40. When we're using conduit, that's a tubing, doesn't have any particular schedules. And what we need to be sure that we don't do with this is try to weld it wouldn't hold up to a weld, or even oxyacetylene braze this together. Conduit is made out of really trashy metals. We're really not quite sure what goes into it each time. It's called pot metal or white metal sometimes. It'll have a galvanized coating that also has some things that, when I'm handling this, it's fine. But if I heat this up to several 100 or 1,000 degrees, it'll start putting off fumes. And those fumes off of conduit are very hazardous, perhaps deadly. And so you don't want to go brazing the stuff, you don't want to go heating it up and trying to put it together that way. Some people do this, it's not a good idea.